you can't just put a child in a mold and like stamp them into what you want them to be. And I think my problem is there are a lot of schools that call themselves classical that implicitly or explicitly hold to this view. So like they call themselves classical and then they talk about how like with our virtue training and our like ways of teaching and everything, your child will stay Christian. They will have the like right worldview. They will come out, ready to go to college and take on the world and teach it how to be Christian. Things like that. And I don't think that's right. And I think that probably hurts a lot of people.
So again, I've been watching these documentaries, and there's all this fear mongering in these documentaries. These people want to change American politics, and it's like, yeah, who else doesn't? And these people, but you just put your finger on exactly that many of these people, we want to just kind of stamp out these little, conservative people of a certain mold. And I think everything in your story so far has been your mother, your parents. I got to give your father some credit too. Your mother, your parents, your schools, they all understood that they're going to give you a nurturing environment, and they're going to help you flourish, and they know what soils have good nutrients.
Maybe.
Hi, this is Paul, and this is Emma. Emma,
Hello.
we met at the Chino conference, and
We did.
part of what I do at these conferences, this is a little known secret, is I sort of give rando slots to people who actually show up at conferences, because at the conference we might not get much of a chance to talk, but now schedule's a little bit easier because I'm back at home and you're at home, and so we can talk. So Emma asked for a slot, and so here she is. So whether this will be shared or not, we will see. But Emma, let's start with you. Why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
All right. It's actually really funny because I was just listening to Spencer Clavin's conversation, and I feel like if you just take his story and remove all the interesting parts, you've got my story. I'm in grad school for classics right now.
Ooh.
I just finished my master's. I'm working on a PhD. So I'm going to be here for a little bit longer.
Okay.
I born and raised Catholic. Um, never felt a strong need to go anywhere else or like explore. Um, and I grew up very much, people talk about the Catholic bubble. I very much grew up in the Catholic bubble. Um, up until college when I went to Hillsdale, which is a much more Protestant environment. Which was very interesting. I kind of immediately fell into a
Why did
group.
you choose Hillsdale? Because again, that's not a Catholic space.
Combination of things. Did I apply? I did apply to a couple Catholic colleges, but they weren't particularly like exciting to me. We went to tour it my junior year of high school, or the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. My mom took me to tour it because I hadn't really been doing any college stuff, and she was like, "We need to start doing the college stuff." And we were in Michigan visiting friends. So we drove down to Hillsdale. It was my first college tour. And honestly, as soon as I saw the campus and like walked around, it just felt right. And then that was kind of confirmed when they gave me the best scholarship out of all the colleges I applied to. Um, that helped the decision a lot.
Doesn't hurt.
So that's kind of how I ended up there. And I really loved my time at Hillsdale. I made some great friends. I met my husband
I don't
there.
know a lot about Hillsdale. I know that it focuses on classics. It's sort of conservative Protestant. It's fairly small. What size is the student body?
1,400 students
1,400
across
so
4 years.
Fairly small college.
It's pretty small.
And what did you like about it? Did you find a real sense of community there?
I really did. Um, it was one of those situations where like the first, four people I met became my best friends for life.
Wow.
So like my college roommate and the two girls who lived next door, and then one other girl in the dorm. We formed this little like group, and we would just like run around together. It was also it was really maybe it was just like what ended up happening to me, but I found it really easy to make like inter-year friendships,
Hmm.
which was really nice. So like I was it was hard because I was friends with a bunch of seniors every year, and then they would graduate and leave. But it was really nice to like get to know people who were a little bit older than me because I'm the oldest in my family also, so I never had that like older sibling thing. So those are sort of the biggest things that jump out at me. Small school means small departments, small class sizes, so you get to really know your professors and the people you're working with. And that's kind of how, I don't know, that kind of, I guess, led me to decide I wanted to do graduate school in classics. Because I'd actually gone there thinking I was going to do pre-med. I was going to be super practical, like help people, you know, the whole thing. And then I was on campus for about a month. And I realized that if I went pre-med, I wouldn't be doing Latin anymore. And I'd been doing Latin since fourth grade. And I didn't like the
Where
idea
did
of a
you go to
world.
school? Were you homeschooled?
I was homeschooled until eighth grade. And then I
Okay.
went to a Catholic all girls school.
Okay. Okay.
So very easy to continue Latin all the way.
And you started Latin, and how many siblings do you have?
Four.
Four siblings, and you're the oldest, and have did well, five kids, the same amount I had, so homeschooled them. Um and what did you think about homeschooling?
I liked it. In hindsight, I don't think I would have liked school if I'd like gone to elementary school.
Hmm.
It would have been too much structure too early, too like sitting in the same spot all the time. With homeschool, I really had some flexibility. My mom wasn't the like sit at a desk like you're at school type. So we had, a certain amount of stuff we had to get through every day in a week.
Right.
But like I could do it however I want. I could sit on
Yep.
the floor. I could
Yep.
like move around.
Yep.
And that helped a lot.
We did similar things with our kids. Here's what you have to get done. Some of my kids would be really diligent. They'd get it all done first, and then they'd have lots of, we call it constructive free time, no screens or limited screens. And they could play in the sandbox, they could build stuff with Legos, they could read a book. And the kids really enjoyed getting their schoolwork out of the way.
Yeah, we did a lot of that. We were one of those, large-ish homeschool families that's at the library like every week, checking out like 10 books per kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. So that really, so you went to, well, tell me about the Catholic girls' school.
All right, but then so I was born in Michigan, and
Okay.
then when I was 9, we moved to Massachusetts.
Oh,
Gotta
okay.
not get the M names mixed up. We moved to Massachusetts because my mom was about to have twins and she wanted to live closer to her family rather than in Michigan where like neither of my parents had it.
How did your parents wind
Um,
up in Michigan? Jobs?
yeah, my dad works in cars,
Okay. Well, Michigan has a lot of working cars.
which is how they ended up back in Michigan 10 years later when I was in
Okay.
college.
Okay. So you moved to
Um,
Massachusetts. Did you go to the all-girls school in Massachusetts?
I did, yeah. I not right away. It wasn't till eighth grade when my mom realized that I was not a naturally social child.
You seem pretty social to
And
me.
well, that's the effect of being forced into high school and forced to learn how to socialize. I think she was also a little concerned because I didn't have really any close girlfriends. I got along better with the boys in homeschool co-op, and she was like, "That you need to learn to get along with girls."
It's true. They're
And
half the world.
all girls school, did
That'll
that.
make it happen.
So I made some really good friends there. It's hard to keep in touch since we moved away.
Mhm.
Although it's really funny because one of my high school friends actually now lives like 20 minutes away from my parents and is like really close to my sister, and it's really
Mhm.
funny.
Mhm. Was it what
It's
is
funny
it
how the
was it a
world
day
works.
school or a boarding school?
It was a day school. It was only like half an hour away
Oh, okay.
from my house.
Did any of your other sisters go there, or just a you
Yes.
thing?
My next sister under me did. Uh, until we moved away when she was in high school, and then she went to a Catholic high school in Michigan. But that one is co-ed, and that's where all the rest of them go now.
Okay, okay,
And
okay.
then at some point, my mom, I don't know if she like burned out on homeschooling or if she just felt like it wasn't working for the younger kids the way it worked for me and Isabel. Um, so she put them in another Catholic school, uh, and started working. She always works for the school we go to.
Smart.
Um, it's always worked out that way. She likes it. She does like communications and social media and stuff. Um, and that way, she's close by and commuting
No,
is easier. So it's not like stay at home mom homeschooling anymore, but it's
right.
not entirely different either.
She sounds like a great mom.
She is a great mom.
It's really fortunate to have a great mom. I
It
mean,
really is.
one of the best things, one of the best advantages you can have in life is if you have a great mom, and it sounds like you've got a great mom. And and it's just been watching the Duggars documentary on Amazon, and they're like, there's almost like big family homeschooling, it's a disaster, and it's like, that's such a crock. I'm not going to say it's a
Yeah.
panacea, but especially for some kids and some families, it can really work out well. And like my kids all had combinations of day school and homeschool. And so, I think actually homeschool is a wonderful option, but it depends a lot on the parents and it depends a lot on the kids. Some kids don't belong in homeschooling and some parents shouldn't homeschool, but it's a great tool if it's the right tool, and it can really do a lot of, because one of the things that we noticed with our kids too is that once they went into regular school, it's like schools waste so much time.
They do. That was the biggest thing I noticed in high school. I was like, why does this take so long? And part of it is that I just like read and work fast.
Yep.
So part of it was just waiting for other kids. But like transitioning between classrooms, like all this stuff just takes so much more time.
And you have to teach sort of to the average or even below the average to sort of keep the whole class up to speed. And with homeschooling, it's like every kid all of my 5 kids, they were all different. Some of them liked math, some of them liked reading. My oldest daughter, she was 5 years old, she was reading at a 3rd grade level, and my wife who's a public school teacher right now, my wife was like, I don't think she's reading that much. And so she'd sit down and quiz her about the book she was going through. It's like, she's doing it, she's reading, she's understanding what she's doing. I mean, it's every kid just takes to it differently.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about that because I learned to read at 4, and apparently nobody believed that I could read. They thought I was just like memorizing my picture books and repeating them back until I started reading my birthday cards at like my 5th birthday. And everyone was like, okay, I guess she can read.
I surprised my parents. We were on a car trip and they didn't think I could read. And then I said, exit. They looked at me. I said, exit. I somehow figured out there it was on the sign. It said exit. And I probably just simply associated my parents talking about the exit when I saw the exit sign. And it's like, exit. Yeah, I didn't sit down and think, I'm going to learn how to read as a little boy. But
Well, apparently I really liked going through the hymnals at church. And they
oh.
split the words up into syllables to match them up to the notes, and that helped.
So what did you like to read as a child?
Everything. Um, my mom had to like rearrange the shelves to make sure that books she didn't want me to read were up on the high shelves where I couldn't get them, because if the title looked interesting to me, I would read it. And she would sometimes find me reading like, they make fun of me for reading like parenting books when I was like 8 or like 12.
That's
And they were
super
like,
smart. It's like, now I know what you're doing, mom.
well, it was interesting. It was all this like, psychology and like developmental stuff. And I was interested in that even back then, I guess. Although I sort of like forgot about it for a while. Um, yeah, I liked learning what growing up was supposed to look like, I guess, and how psychology works and stuff like that. So I would read that. I would check out, I was that girl who checks out like 400-page fantasy novels from the library and tears through them in like 3 days.
So favorite books of your childhood?
Um, I mean, Lewis and Tolkien are the classics. I read Narnia very early. My first literary crush was probably Peter Pevensey. Um,
Oh, Peter.
I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be him or like have him for an older brother or marry him, but like it was definitely one of those.
Wow. Oh, that's great. That's great. So then high school, favorite things in high school.
Um, I mean, I loved Latin. I loved my Latin teacher. I loved my Latin class. It didn't hurt that if you took Latin as your language, you were excused from gym class because the only way they could make the schedule work was to have those two at the same time. Uh,
Not a fan of gym class, huh?
I wasn't like that down on it, but it was like a mild. I would have done Latin anyway, but it
You
didn't
liked
hurt.
books better than basketball.
Yeah.
And you're not very tall. I met you in person, so.
No, I am not very tall. I'm exceedingly average.
So what about your high school Latin teacher really? Um, why was that teacher such a great teacher and a big influence?
I mean, she was just one of those like classic teachers that puts like 110% into her students. And like we had an advising program in my high school. We called it advising. It was like a mentorship thing where you would be paired up with a teacher and you would meet with they would pull you out of class every like 2 weeks to talk for like 20 minutes. Just, how's
Really?
your life going? Anything you're like struggling with? Um, and I had her for my advisor for like the last 3 years of high school. And she just always went above and beyond in like everything she put her mind to. She would just go all the way. I don't know how she did it because
Mm.
she built that Latin program from the ground up. She was hired to teach music. And then they were like, "Wait, do you know Latin? We need a Latin teacher." And she was like, "I would like to be full time." So,
Did she have to learn Latin to do it, or did she already know it?
no, she did know Latin. She did a music degree, but she learned Latin as part of it. So, but she had to like learn how to teach Latin.
Apparently, she learned well.
Yeah.
There are some people too that are just sort of natural teachers. They've got the right personality, they've got the right temperament, and so it sounds like you have been the beneficiary of many good and wonderful people and communities.
I have.
It's just,
I'm really lucky. There was a time period where I didn't like realize it or recognize it, but now I'm starting to recognize it more.
there's a lot of sad stories on the internet, and sad stories sell. Like I just watched the Hillsong documentary, and I'm just watching the Duggars documentary right now, and it's just I watched those things. I didn't know anything about the Duggars or any of that when it was happening. I didn't watch cable television, so and it's just a really sad story, at least so far. And
Yeah.
the screens are so full of sad stories. It's really nice to hear about someone who grew up in a terrific family, had a wonderful mother, who really shaped your childhood to really help you blossom, but then had the wisdom to say, well, let's send you to an all-girl school now. Let's have you get to know the fairer sex a little bit. And because yeah, girls and women, they've got their own ways of combat too. And so get your stripes there, have a great teacher there. Well, when you went to Hillsdale, did you know you wanted to study classics? Or no, you already said you wanted pre-med. So you obviously did well in the sciences too.
Yes, I think My chemistry. I took chemistry the first semester. And Hillsdale does this thing where like the professors meet with parents like they do at high schools if
Oh,
parents want to come out and see them. People are really torn on whether this is a good thing or not. Um, it worked well for us. My parents enjoyed like getting to know my professors, and it wasn't like, your kid is not doing good in college. It was just like so that they have a little more context for when you talk about school or anything like that. But I think my chemistry professor was a little sad that I went the humanities route.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can understand that. So why the humanities route instead of pre-med?
Once again, it just felt right.
Just
My
felt
whole
right.
life, there's just been this confidence about choices
Hmm.
that just comes up every so often. I do think it's God. I don't know what the end goal is, but every like key choice moment, there's just a right answer.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer. All right. So you got your degree in classics or Latin or
Classics.
classics? Okay. And so you learned Latin. Did you learn any Greek?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, they would not let me go past a certain point in Latin without learning Greek because you can't understand a lot of the Latin like poetry and stuff without the Greek context.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Good. And then you decided to go into graduate school with this stuff.
yeah.
I mean, because it's one thing, like you said, I mean, if you go on pre-med, well, that sets you on a whole trajectory, and I get that. And I get there's a lot of downside to that whole trajectory too. Of course, at the end, there's, great, well-paying job, et cetera, et cetera. You're very much on a different course with this.
Yeah, I am.
Because if
It's
there's if
kind
there's
of it's
anything that's
kind of a
probably
crazy decision.
yeah, if there's anything probably a less lucrative degree than a philosophy degree, it's probably a classics degree.
It's a little bit better when you're Catholic because you can teach Latin at Catholic schools.
Okay, but you're certainly not going to get rich teaching Latin at
No,
Catholic
no,
schools.
you're not.
You won't starve, but you won't get rich. Well, tell me about your studies now. Do you still enjoy it? Are you happy with your
I
decision?
do. Yeah, I am. Um, and this school, I've found a really great community. Even though it's a very, secular state university. Um, I found a good community of other grad students, and I've started to get more involved in my church community around here, which is really nice also. Um, yeah, actually, lately I've been sort of edging my way later and later into like medieval studies.
Mm,
You can do sort of a medieval minor to your classics graduate degree here.
okay.
So I've been sort of working on that because one of my really big interests, which wasn't exactly why I got started here, but was sort of something I like grabbed onto once I was doing more classic stuff, is classical education and what that means. Because Hillsdale is very big into classical education. They have a
Right.
classical education minor. They just added a master's program in it. And like it's especially since the pandemic, since the rising homeschooling, more people interested in private schools, classical schools becoming this big thing. And I feel like everyone who uses it means something different. And
Say
I
more
don't
about
like
that.
that.
Well,
I
say
don't
more
like
about this. This is interesting.
so we did find something interesting.
I had absolutely no doubt there would be plenty interesting in this conversation. I had utmost confidence.
For some people, classical just means conservative, not teaching like liberal public school stuff. For some people, classical means like lots of memorization, lots of really like traditional school methods, like, you know, learn Latin starting in like second grade. I guess that's a separate definition. For some people, classical means you learn Latin and that's like required and you learn the classics. But for some people, it means this like liberal arts tradition that goes back to ancient Greece and Rome. Um, and for some people, it's more of an anthropology than a specific teaching method. And that's sort of the view that I tend to hold to. And I think my mom read a whole bunch of like classical schooling stuff and like liberal arts stuff in the early 2000s when she was homeschooling us. I know that because the books were on the shelf and I would occasionally also read them.
Susan Wise Bauer, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I think the anthropology view is sort of more the one she held to, where like you can't just put a child in a mold and like stamp them into what you want them to be. And I think my problem is there are a lot of schools that call themselves classical that implicitly or explicitly hold to this view. So like they call themselves classical and then they talk about how like with our virtue training and our like ways of teaching and everything, your child will stay Christian. They will have the like right worldview. They will come out, you know, ready to go to college and take on the world and teach it how to be Christian. Things like that. And I don't think that's right. And I think that probably hurts a lot of people.
I'm going to make that a teaser. If I edit this, I'm going to make that a teaser for this video because that's absolutely outstanding. That's the selling line for this talk. Maybe there'll be even bigger ones coming up. I don't know, but that is because when I watch, so again, I've been watching these documentaries and it's all this fear mongering in these documentaries. These people want to change American politics. And it's like, yeah, who else doesn't? You know, and these people, but you just put your finger on exactly that many of these people, we want to just kind of stamp out these little, you know, conservative people of a certain mold. And I think everything in your story so far has been your mother, your parents, I got to give your father some credit too, your mother, your parents, your schools, they all understood that they're going to give you a nurturing environment and they're going to help you flourish, and they know what soils have good nutrients.
I think that's a great way to put it. A lot, and to give Hillsdale credit, they're definitely like in their, at least in their like classical education minor. I don't know about the Barney Charter School Initiative. I don't know anything about how that's run, really. But they talk about how classical schooling is about is a garden. You're helping children to grow like into themselves, as opposed to like modern public schooling
Their own
coming
little widget
from
factory.
like Dewey and his sort of intellectual tradition is very factory based, where we're making good workers to go into the factory, and if you put in X, Y will come out.
Yeah. Oh no, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. So what are your favorite things that you're working on now in your advanced degrees? What are your new favorite books?
I don't know. I'm very much still in the phase where I'm like just taking in a whole bunch of different things, and like I haven't developed a like strong preference for anything. I mean, there are some things that are just always good. Like Virgil is lovely in the original language. Very much recommend if, I don't know,
I never
anyone
learned
has
Latin. I
the
really regret
capability to
that.
do that. Uh, very much recommend doing that. I need to go back into Boethius. Um, I read this fascinating book over Christmas break called The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis. I'll put it around here because I wanted to show you.
Yes, I have not read that one. I think I
It's
need
good.
to.
It's also fast to read, which is nice. And he talked a lot about Boethius's influence on Lewis and how
Hmm.
Lewis sort of considered himself a modern Boethius because he was translating the pre-modern so that modern people could understand it, just like Boethius was doing with like ancient stuff for medieval people.
Interesting.
Um, and of course, that gets you on a whole Neoplatonism track. And then Verbeke also has his Neoplatonism. And I feel like they fit together somehow. And I feel like Neoplatonism and classical schooling are like that. And therefore, there's got to be a connection that I can like draw out or multiple connections. So I'm kind of hunting for those right now. Like I feel like Vervaeke's going to come into this somewhere.
Well, let's
And we'll
let's talk
see.
about how on earth you wound up in Chino a couple of weeks ago. How did you find this little corner?
So my husband is doing a counseling degree
Oh,
with Colorado Christian University. So he's doing an online degree while I'm in person at our university or
did your
at,
husband
you
go to
know, at the
the
university
conference?
here. No,
Okay,
he
I
didn't
didn't
have
think I
time.
met him.
He had a bunch of travel to do this month and he didn't want to take the time off work. And he's much more extroverted and social than I am. He talks faster, he talks more easily.
Where did you meet him?
Hillsdale.
Hillsdale. Okay.
He was a year ahead of me. He was actually one of the first people I met there. Um, I fell into this whole, group of friends that were across all 4 years. Um, and I sort of just as I got to know him better, and as we sort of settled in, I started like thinking about when he was going to graduate and about how like I would be really sad when that happened. And like I wish he could just sort of stick around forever and not have to go away.
Ah,
And I was like,
ah,
wait, there's a name for this.
there's a way to do that. Well, so did you propose to him?
No, no. That was when I realized that I had a crush on him. And then he asked me out a couple months later.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
and so we dated through his last year of college, and then I guess 2 years after that. Um, well, we got engaged right before I graduated college,
Okay.
and then we were engaged for like a year. And then uh, he moved out to Illinois with me when we got married. So it's been almost
Wonderful.
2 years of that
Oh, congratulations. That's
now.
terrific.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, back to finding this little corner. So your husband
He's
is
doing a
getting a
counseling
counseling
degree.
degree.
He's getting interested in like personality stuff, I think it
Mhm.
was. And then he's poking around on the internet talking about personality stuff. And he's like, oh, there's this Jordan Peterson guy. I've kind of heard of him in like some other contexts. This looks interesting. And then he sends me a couple videos because we like to go back and forth, sharing what we're thinking about. And I just sort of went crazy. Like, that's the only way I can think of to describe it. Like, I watched a whole bunch of Jordan Peterson because, I'm a grad student. I'm in class, like, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. The rest of the time, like, I've got stuff I need to do, but it's kind of unstructured time.
Right.
So
It's
I just
back to
watched like
homeschooling.
yeah, really. I watched a ton of Jordan Peterson. I watched a bunch of his like longer podcasts, and then I found the Four Horsemen of Meaning video. And I already love Bishop Barron. So of course Jordan Peterson talking to Bishop Barron, that's going to be great. And then like we'll see what these other two people are like. And I watched the whole video. I think I only watched it once. I might have watched it once myself and then made Colin watch it with me again. That might have been what happened. And that's when he started realizing like, oh, you are more into this than I am. And then from there, like first I think it was Peugeot. I did the same thing. I watched a ton of like Peugeot videos. I watched his video with Bishop Barron. Um and I started sort of getting a feel for like what he was about. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. It actually was kind of familiar to me because I feel like his symbolic worldview is not that far off from a sacramental worldview in Catholicism, which I was very blessed to have been raised with. Like my parents, my mom was a revert after sort of drifting away a little bit in college and then coming back a couple years after getting married. And my dad converted to Catholicism from Lutheranism. So neither of them like took it for granted that this is something that will just come to be without work in a child. And they both also were very passionate about the fact that like this is something worth handing on. So they were very good at like answering questions and helping me figure things out. I was a very like sort of like logical, scientific minded child, despite the language's enthusiasm. Um, so they were very good at answering my questions. So I grew up very much in that sacramental worldview and with a strong conviction that it was true and it was accurate. And like no amount of like science argument can, destroy it. So I found Peugeot really interesting and really almost comforting in a way, um, or like comfortable, which is I know is not the experience most people have when watching
I had a hard
Jonathan
time
Peugeot
understanding
talk
him
about
at
symbolic
first.
worldview.
At first, I was like, what's this guy talking about? It took a while to sort of figure out what was going on with him.
Yeah, it
For
took a
me.
little bit to figure out the language, and then once I started like connecting it to what I already knew, I was like, oh, okay, I like this. And then from there, I started like also getting into Vervaeke, and the cognitive science was and is very interesting. Um, I have not made my way all the way through Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, but I'm sort of sporadically working through it
It's a
when
big
I
series.
have time and interest.
Okay.
Um,
So now you're
and
stuck
then
talking to the only guy on the stage you could talk to. I get it. I get it.
no, it was. I actually probably by now have watched more of you than either of them.
Really? Well, I put out so much, so
You do.
there's
That is
that.
part of it. It's very nice, like breakfast and lunch entertainment. Like, there we go. I know what I'm gonna do while I'm eating lunch. Um,
Cat videos, Christian Reformed minister being a monkey.
you're not a monkey. I found it really interesting and really helpful in my sort of quest to understand Protestantism,
Oh.
which is a quest I picked up in college because I got to college, I met all these people. Actually, one of the first people I met, one of the first things she said to me was like, so what denomination are you? Because we need to know this for like the rest of this conversation. And I was like, I'm Catholic and I don't know. I know what Lutherans are. I know how that works. Kinda. My grandparents were Lutheran. Um, I don't really know anything else.
Wow. So good.
Yeah.
I'm an introduction to Protestantism. That's good. So you decided to not only just sit and listen to videos, you decided to come to a conference.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I don't I guess once again, it was just right. I wasn't able to make it to Thunder Bay both because it was hard to get to and because it was in the middle of the semester and I can't just tell my school like I'm just gonna leave for a week in the middle of the semester for something that isn't really related, even though it feels really related to me. You okay with that? Cool, bye. But this fell exactly into the gap between the end of my semester and my sister's high school graduation.
Oh, perfect.
Um, so it was like, wait, the timing does work out. It wouldn't be like it's not so hard to get to. It wouldn't be like incredibly expensive or anything. And then my husband was really encouraging me, like, I think you should go for it. You've been like really interested in this stuff for like a year and a half at this point. I think you should really go and like sort of take the next step to get more involved and see more about what's going on. Um, so I went and it
Did you know
was
anybody
fantastic.
else personally who was going?
Not
Besides,
personally. I'd been on Father Eric streams a couple times. I
okay.
started like getting on streams a little bit.
Yeah.
to try to like meet people before just like jumping in there. And Grim Grizz did the campground. He did like campground meetups before we got there, which helped a lot actually. So I kind of talked to some of the people, but I didn't know anyone like in like I'd never met anyone in person before I flew out to California to camp with them, which
Brave.
my mom loved.
Really? You should have brought
No,
your
she did
mom.
not. She did not. I mentioned it sort of offhand later, and she's like, "Wait, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Okay,
Who are you going to be with it? Here, watch this channel here. Watch this Sikh sing hobo songs.
pretty much."
You should
Gringos
definitely
said
bring
very
your mom
nice
to the next
things
one.
about having ladies at the campsite, which I really appreciated.
But no, I'm serious.
Um,
Bring your mom to the next one. She'll fit right in. Say, come on, Emma's mom. You're welcome here.
I
Hang out
think
with
she would
us.
love it, honestly, but it
Definitely.
might need to wait a few years. We've got two more to graduate high school and go off, and then she might have a little bit more time.
Yeah, although more expenses too. My
Yeah.
youngest son is graduating college next week, and it's like
Oh,
we put 5 of them through college in North America, and 4 of the 5 of them went to private schools.
yeah.
It's like my salary went to house, food, cars, everything. Her salary just went to colleges for the
Well,
last.
that was kind of what my parents did with the private schooling for the Catholic schools too.
Yep.
Like my dad's salary is the one we actually live off of, and my mom just works so that we can go to nice schools.
Yep. Yep. And
And I'm
I think it's
incredibly
worth it.
grateful for that.
Yep. Yep. Because there's no bigger investment you make in your life than in your kids in many ways. It's how do you value some of these things? Like, have I put more into my kids or my church and all that kind of, you can't do that math really, but your kids are an enormous investment. And if you have 5 of them, it's a really big investment, but I don't for a minute have any. I'm glad we had 5 kids. I never would have imagined we would have, but I'm glad we had 5 kids, and they all get along wonderfully. I'm glad we homeschooled them. I have zero regrets on any of those scores. So okay, so you went to the conference and now you're back from the conference, and time well spent.
Yes, absolutely. It was really nice to like meet people and get to know people. I've gone on Jacob's streams a couple times now. Partly because Father Eric's in DC without a computer, and so he can't do his open mic nights.
Yeah,
Um,
Miss Father
but
Eric.
also like meeting Jacob at the conference, I realized he wasn't as scary as I thought he was.
He's extremely nice, actually.
I thought he was very scary. It's actually funny because Sandy and I, um, we bunked together at the campground because we were the
Okay.
only two girls.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how like she was much more intimidated by you, and I was like never particularly like intimidated by you. I was like terrified of Jacob, and she like Jacob was the sort of entry point for her. And it's a funny like opposites.
Yeah. And Sandy could learn. I said, Sandy, how scary am I really? But I'm a Christian Reformed minister. She had been in the Christian Reformed church. Some of the experiences weren't particularly good. So of course she was seeing, imagining these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not really that scary, Sandy. Takeaways from the conference. What were some of the highlights?
Um, it's hard to like pull out particular moments. I'm not really good at that. Although I've been watching the videos again with my husband now that I'm back home, and we can go through them together. And it was really funny because we were watching the one about the role of family last night over dinner, and it brought up a really good memory for me because there's one point where I think it's Vervaeke says like the most important thing you can do is make a child, and he goes on this whole like discussion of how that works. And then he finishes and you just hear people like screaming and cheering. And I'm like, wait, that was the Catholic corner. There was a whole group of us and we just went like wild at that point because yes.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Oh, that's wonderful. The Catholic corner. So there was a Catholic corner of the corner, huh?
There
Y'all
was a
sat
little bit.
together to, you know.
Well, because Father Eric started sitting like right behind the speakers, and then over the course of the like Ted was hanging out with him, and Dr. Jim was hanging out with him. And then I joined them. I like floated around a lot of things, but for that part, I ended up at the Catholic corner because we all just like gravitate.
Yeah.
You know, you see a Roman collar, you just sort of go over that way because it's like, oh, that's where my people are.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, and fun, nobody, I mean, I, after the conference, I had the wonderful chance to have dinner with Father Eric, just the two of us. And because he and I haven't really spent any one-on-one time together, even online, much less in person. And so we had a lovely dinner together and I was able to, I do in person what I do online, which is basically get the skinny on people's lives and to hear his story. And I love Father Eric, and I'm so glad that he's here. In some ways, Father Eric is, sometimes much needed adult supervision on the insanity of this corner. So it's wonderful. So all right, I have
Yeah, he's
pestered
really
you
great.
enough.
He was my
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Oh, he was my ride home, my ride to the campsite from the airport. So
Okay.
we got to get lost together
Oh.
at like 9 o'clock at night in California.
Oh, it's so great to come into a campground late at night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Fortunately, everything was pretty well set up.
yeah. Grizz. I told Grizz he was a community organizer, and
He did. He organized a whole community.
he did. He organized the whole community, and that was quite an accomplishment. So I have bothered you. Fortunately, I don't have a randos conversation right after this one, so I have a little bit more flexibility in time. So you asked for this, and now I've pestered you for 45 minutes. The time is yours. What would you like to talk about?
I don't know. I've been like,
Why did you want to talk?
because okay, both because I wanted to just like talk to you a little bit more because I was only able to like,
Yeah.
very piecemeal.
Yeah.
Um, and because it feels a little bit like a rite of passage. Um, but I've been running so many different like scenarios of what I'd want to say in my head that I don't know how to like pick one.
When I talked to Jordan
Um,
Peterson, I had a list of 5 points, and I said to myself, I'm going to get at least 4 of these points in my half hour with him. And I knew the kind of talker he was, and I managed to I think I got all 5 in. I was really sneaky, just winding my way through that conversation. But so this is your challenge. This is it. You have all those points. You're going to try and make me
is
Catholic?
No, I don't have anything to say that people haven't said to you before. I I'm almost certain. Like I was
Well,
on a
you
street with
have. Your whole
Jacob.
story is nothing that people have said to me before. So,
Well, yeah, but not in terms of like arguments for why you should be Catholic or something, unless my
should I be
story
Catholic?
is one of those. I think it would be better.
Really? Tell me why.
Um, because I mean, I can give you the like catechism
Your
explanation, which is
catechism's a lot longer than mine.
that is actually, did I know that? I don't think I knew that.
Heidelberg
It
catechism is
makes
about
sense.
this big.
It makes
There's about
sense, but
this
I didn't
big.
know that. I yeah, funny story. I didn't think Calvinists were still a thing until I got to college. I thought they died out like Puritans. Um,
Well, I was
Catholic
raised.
bubble.
I was
It's a good
raised
time.
being very suspicious of Catholics. They had
Yeah, so was my husband.
statues, but at least in New Jersey, the Catholic girls looked really hot. So it was one of these things. All these Italian Catholic girls.
They'll get you.
Yeah,
I mean, not you apparently, but plenty of
They didn't
people.
get me. No, I married a girl that was half Lutheran, half Baptist. So
Does
figure
that
that one
average
out.
out to Christian Reformed or no?
Well, actually, there's a little bit of truth to that. You got fundamentalist Baptist over here and Lutheran here, so Christian Reformed Church. It's kind of
It's kind of in
true.
the middle.
Kind of true.
Yeah,
You still get your drinks and your smokes. A little bit Sabbatarian. Yeah.
yeah. My husband grew up charismatic evangelical.
Really?
So, yeah,
And he's in the Catholic Church now?
he is. He converted a couple months before we got married, not so that we could get married. We're both very like firm on this point. Um, I would not have wanted him to convert just for me without believing it. This is a huge issue at Hillsdale also. Like the number of both girls who flirt to convert and guys who convert to marry is abnormally high at Hillsdale. So,
I thought they
because
were
it's a
mostly
Protestant,
Protestants. They're all
there's a
trying to
plural.
work in their own little niches.
Catholics are the largest single denomination. It's like 30% Catholic, I think. The school newspaper did a pie chart, and I think it's like 30% Catholic. So if you add all the Protestants together, sure, they outnumber the Catholics by a good bit. But if you break them all down, there are more Catholics than any one Protestant group.
That's sort of like America, because that's the way it is in America too.
Yeah.
You Catholics, you're sneaky. They always warned us about the Catholics. They're sneaky, especially the Jesuits.
Yeah, they say that in the Catholic world too. Jesuits are sneaky.
Oh, So you're not going to bring this conversation anywhere, huh? I mean, I just let it out there for you, and it's like, nope, not going to take it. Not going to take
I
it.
mean, I got my C.S. Lewis as modern Boethius. I got my Neoplatonism in classical education.
That's true.
Those are the two big things.
You weaved them in. That was
I wove them in.
very sneaky of you. See, sneaky Catholics. She weaved it in, and I didn't. She got it right under the radar. She's been colonizing me subtly, because I do want to read that book now. And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you're in graduate school. Where you want to teach in a Catholic school? Is that what you'd like to do?
I'd like to teach in a small liberal arts school.
Okay.
If it ends up being Catholic, that would be a definite plus, but I would also be happy to go back to Hillsdale, which will eventually become Catholic from the number of Catholics who leave, go to grad school, and come back and be professors.
No, you've got it all wrong. It's the Orthodox that are going to inherit the earth. Why haven't you figured that out?
They're just really high church Protestants. They just did it a little earlier.
There really is some truth to that.
Yeah, that's really why so many people converting out of Protestantism go Orthodox instead of Catholic, because there's some things that they don't like. I do think a lot of the time it's because there's some things they don't want to let go of, or because it makes more sense to them because the structure is closer to Protestantism. Whereas Catholics have this whole like really centralized hierarchy thing going on. And nobody really likes that, especially in America. Like my husband was raised to believe that you cannot be a Catholic and a good American. Because if you're a Catholic, you believe in someone overseas telling you what to think. And you cannot be a good American if that's how you live your life.
Interesting. Well, I knew that idea was around, like in the 50s, but it pays to remind people that the Klan was against blacks, Jews, and Catholics. And, I just heard Bishop Barron on a podcast complaining about this group that actually the guy got an award, and I just reading in the Sacramento Bee in the California legislature, it's like, you're really, I mean, this nun, but it's not a nun, it's a drag queen. Let's get drag queen nun. And it's like, that's pretty, that's really anti-Catholic.
It really is.
And it's not, and then for the legislature to give an award, especially in a state like California, where newsflash, there's a few Catholics in the state of California. There really are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they vote
there really are.
and they pay attention. Now the relationship between the Catholic Church and Latin America, that's a whole nother kettle of fish in terms of history. And I remember in the Christian Reformed Church, at one of the synods I was at, we were having we were doing some work on the Heidelberg Catechism, because there's a few lines in there that are a little anti-Catholic. And so there was adding some footnotes to sort of say, well, this was, some of the reformational polemics, and they don't really, and it was some of the contingent from Mexico that stood up and said, don't do this. And it's like, well, I kind of think that the Catholic Church in America is a little different than the Catholic Church in other places in the world. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
that's so hard for Protestants to figure out, is just how massive the Catholic Church is. And the fact that even with all of its drama and stuff, it continues to cohere. It's really an amazing thing.
Yeah, I forget it sometimes too, honestly, because I mean, America takes over the internet, right? So the Catholic Church in America also takes over the internet. And I think we have some very unique um, disagreements or controversies that we're dealing with in America that like also exist other places, but are just way bigger here because I don't know, everybody's louder on the internet here.
Yeah.
So it gets sort of artificially elevated, I guess. Like the trad debate.
Yeah, that's interesting to watch.
I I joined Jacob. No, it's not Jacob's book club. It's Elijah's book club. But the Jewish book club on Jacob's channel. I joined it because the book looked interesting, and they immediately asked me if I was a trad cap, and I'm like, I don't know how to answer the question because aesthetically, yes, I lean more trad, but all the like baggage and like opinions that people on like trads on the internet have, most of that I do not agree with.
Huh.
And like my husband comes from a charismatic background. My parents go to a charismatic Catholic church now. That's where I got married. Like I occupy this really awkward space between traditional and charismatic.
If I were to become Catholic, I would definitely be a charismatic Catholic. Because
You
that to
like the
me,
speaking in tongues? The praise and worship music?
I'm Protestant. And I just think, and one of the, beyond the Christian Reformed Church, if I had to leave the Christian Reformed Church for some reason, there's some Anglicans that are interesting, but Vineyard is sort of charismatic Presbyterian.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's where Colin went. That's
Oh,
where he grew
yeah,
up.
yeah,
In
yeah,
Vineyard.
yeah. Vineyard's really,
His
John
parents
Wimber was
are,
was Presbyterian.
yeah. I didn't know that. That
Yeah.
makes sense because he keeps finding like Calvinist understandings of things in his understanding of Christianity. And he keeps blaming it on this one Bible study that he went to for like one semester. Um, Maybe it goes a little deeper than that.
Yeah, yeah. No, and Calvinists used to be Catholic, that's true too.
Yeah.
John Calvin, Frenchman,
Yeah.
who, and no, and so I've always I've always appreciated the openness of the charismatic movements. And so yeah, no, that would, if I had to become Catholic, I'd probably be a charismatic Catholic. That would probably be suit me most. Yeah, and you can look up John Wimber. I mean, that whole little clutch of John Wimber and Dallas Willard and Richard Foster. So you've got Quakers and Presbyterians and Baptists and a fair amount of charismatic energy and sort of spiritual gifts and spiritual practices. I mean, I've been drinking from those waters for a long time. So even though I'm still frozen chosen Christian Reformed, but I'm a pretty eclectic guy. I don't know if you've picked that up about me yet.
You watch enough of your videos and it sort of starts to show up here and there.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, Emma. Now you're going to let me share this with the internet, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you should. I think you should. This has been, and you start out saying there's going to be nothing interesting in this whole video. And I have found the entire hour that we have spoken together tremendously interesting. This has been,
well, thank you.
This has been great fun. And
I've really enjoyed it too.
And I'm sure you'll share it with your husband. And I hope he enjoys it as much as we have. And I know the corner's going to enjoy it. And I'm going to take that little, I don't usually like to edit because it's like I'm impatient. It's like, oh, upload it right away, share it tomorrow.
Up there.
But I think I'm going to edit this and take that little point out because your point, I think, is exactly the right point to make with respect to, now it's usually progressive evangelicals who are making these, these documentaries warning people about dum dum dum, and often I watch these things with the subtitles on, and how many times in that Hillsong, ominous music. It's like ominous music. Be afraid of Hillsong. They're coming for your politics. They're gonna take your
everyone
government.
says that about Hillsdale, and so I am no stranger to that attitude. It was actually really great being at the conference because everyone was like, you went to Hillsdale, and like happy about it, rather than like, you went to Hillsdale? Should I still be talking
to you? Well, I think, Jordan obviously has raised their reputation in some ways. They did have a reputation. I think a lot of it basic. Boy, there's a subject of a 2-hour video on my part that I won't beleaguer you with now, but no, maybe I've been red pilled. I don't know, but I Hillsdale sounds like a kind of a cool place. So
my experience was really great there.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, Emma, I'm going to let you go, but this has been totally fun. Now that I have your permission to publish this, and I'll make, now that I've said I'll make that teaser, I have to make that teaser. So
yeah, you do.
I do, because it was a great
Have fun editing.
I hate editing. So I hate editing. I don't like it at all. Anyway, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to meet you. And I hope maybe next time you come to a conference, you bring your hubby. So
I would like to.
So are you in Eastern or Western Michigan?
I'm not in Michigan anymore. Oh. I'm in Illinois.
Oh, Northern Illinois or Southern Illinois?
Central.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not real far. All right. Well, no. I just had a guy who's trying to get an estuary group going in Eastern Michigan. And,
yeah, I saw that.
And
if I'm ever home, I could drop in, or at my parents'. I guess this is home. I'm still not used to that.
Where are your parents living now?
Ann Arbor area.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Boy, wouldn't it be crazy if I could figure out how to do a estuary conference at Calvin College?
That would be crazy. Richard and I were talking about whether or not we could talk Hillsdale into hosting one.
That'd be fun. I'd totally.
I feel like there's promise there.
Yeah, it might even be easier to get it in at Hillsdale than at Calvin.
Could be. We'll see how it all goes.
All right. So anyway, Emma, thank you so much. It was such a delight talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
I will see you the next time you come to a conference, I suppose.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.